Battles are fast-paced, accompanied by impact sounds, cries of pain, and large explosions. Blood splatter effects frequently occur when characters are slashed and killed. Cutscenes depict additional acts of violence and blood. A character's hand severed by a sword. A guard's throat slit by a knife. A character impaled through the chest. A prisoner's shoulder stabbed and twisted by an interrogator's blade. The game contains some sexual material. A character caressing and straddling a man in bed, references to prostitution, sexual moaning sounds in a brothel, dialogue such as, "I'd be happy to show you provided I can afford it," and "Thank you for your service, my chamber is just upstairs." Some characters are depicted with partially exposed breasts and buttocks. Strong language is heard in this game. For the first time in the mainline Final Fantasy series, a game is going to be rated M. Final Fantasy 16 is rated M. I can feel the hype coursing through my veins as I read that ESRB official description. I can feel the hype in my veins. In my opinion, the target rating is actually a tribute to Final Fantasy games of old. Think about those games for a moment and how they would translate with modern day graphics and voiceovers. Pretty much every Final Fantasy game ever has a story geared towards adults, but appeals to young adults. I mean, we're talking the cycle of life and death, religion, love, loss, war, existentialism, etc., etc. All very mature themes for a kid or a young adult, but there's also giant mountable chickens, Kupo. And you don't have to imagine how arguably one of the most mature Final Fantasies of all time would be if it was remade, because, well, it was. The original Final Fantasy VII is a rated M game, cloaked in a teen rating. Man, I've been saying that for a long time. We have eco-terrorism, corporate greed, blood, cussing, a brothel, murder, massacre, suicide. Final Fantasy VII Remake proved a modern game would need a strong, conscious effort to target that teen rating. The iconic moment from the original, appropriately titled A Trail of Blood, was completely altered to be just a single trail of purple ooze. What a letdown. And when someone gets stabbed by Sephiroth, a tuft of black smoke comes out. No. Wall Market! Now, I will say that the changes to the scenario in Wall Market, I have to say, great improvements there, but we can't deny that Wall Market itself was significantly toned down to meet that teen rating. Now, I am happy to say, and I'm very glad that Final Fantasy VII Remake just pushed the boundaries of that teen rating. I mean, pushed it to its absolute limit. But even still, the exclusions and the adjustments are just so noticeable, and it turns out a majority of Final fans agree. This Final Fantasy VII story suffered due to the restraints of the teen rating in Remake. Now, there are things that past Final Fantasy games were able to sneak in and still meet that teen rating due to the capabilities of the hardware at the time. Let's talk about Final Fantasy VI. The world is in ruin, and you play as someone who is consumed, so consumed with sorrow and grief, attempts suicide. Kefka poisons the water supply, causing an entire nation to die painful deaths. And he gleefully stabs somebody to death, saying, "Die, die, die." Overall, the themes of Final Fantasy VI are so heavy and dark and mature that if it were remade today, man, there would be far too many compromises in order to get that teen rating. And it's just as @NovaDarkStorm says on Twitter, quote, "I think it's about time that we see a different side of the game. We see so much more brutality in other games. I want to see a more dramatic flair for the series. The characters have got to scream the emotion for you to embrace what they're going through. We need that passion." End quote. Now, Final Fantasy has always contained more mature themes than the targeted age group, and because of that have left a major impression on the younger minds. I mean, it's much like Disney, right? It's just like Disney does with their movies. I mean, if you think about the movies that kids are watching, the Disney movies, actually no, think about the Disney movies that you watched as a kid. The main character is typically a few years older than the kids watching it, dealing with situations that older kids or teenagers face in life. These stories appeal to the younger mind because they are precursors of what life has in store and how not to react and cope. Whether that message is in your face or subconsciously being stored, it's what's happening. Now, Final Fantasy 16 isn't for kids. I'm not saying that. This is definitely a rated M game, but the same idea applies, but rather for middle schoolers and high schoolers about to enter the real world. And of course, for us adults who live in it. Night Sky Prince adds on Twitter, quote, "I think Yoshi P really had it dead on when he said it's not about showing copious amounts of gore and innuendo, that they aimed for the M rating because they didn't want to censor themselves and rework scenes for that age rating. But I also think that in order to achieve a certain tone in a story, especially one that wants to be as mature as this one, you can't shy away from blood or violence. Not in a game about war on this scale to be believed in the way that the devs want us to believe it." End quote. Me and NSP are referring to this quote from an interview with Yoshi P about the mature rating. Yoshi P says, quote, "Setting mechanics aside, all Final Fantasy games since the first in the series share certain attributes: an epic story, a cinematic gaming experience, a drama-filled narrative, high-quality graphics, and magnificent music. We want chocobos and mugles to show up as well. We want to leverage our abilities in the time allotted to us and create a game that resonates with multiple generations of gamers. It's for that reason we decided not to throw in everything but the kitchen sink. We wanted something that would stick with new players and retain classic Final Fantasy elements, but also appeal to adults who may have moved on from the series in the recent years. We thought, what about a new fantasy for people in their 30s and 40s? Who have come to know the harshness of reality. With these considerations in mind, we proceeded to design the game." At MetalGuy86 says, quote, "I always enjoy when things go for a darker tone. It's the same thing with something like Harry Potter. I never really liked the early kid-friendly ones, but the last couple took a much darker tone overall and it just worked better. I'm looking forward to the mature Final Fantasy." End quote. And you know what? Me too. I actually really like the later Harry Potters, but I also say that the Harry Potters weren't, the darker Harry Potters were not earned unless you watch the first couple. You know what I mean? I love the coming of age story. But anyways, so we got at StinaBabe91 says, quote, "Because it can start delving into adult themes, it's the same reason why I like House of the Dragon way more than Rings of Power. The characters are more relatable and human." End quote. At Dan Carnett says, quote, "I feel ever since the SNES era, the franchise has tackled more mature themes like love and betrayal. To me, Final Fantasy has been a more mature franchise psychologically for the majority, so why not have the moments be highlight to a more realistic interpretation like the tone would suggest." End quote. We're talking about war. We're talking about revenge. These are some tough and heavy themes, as we saw, Last of Us Part 2 tackle the theme of revenge. I mean, you can't, it's just hard to talk about that in a teen rating if you want to make it feel realistic. So, here are some concerns from fans, and I absolutely want to read them off too. Alexandria Atkins says on Twitter, quote, "I feel as one of the rare ones that don't actually like the M rating. I don't care for the darker storylines, and it makes me sadder that I won't be able to enjoy Final Fantasy as I used to." End quote. Now, I replied back to that saying, I understand. What can Final Fantasy 16 show you this year? Because there's going to be a lot of information coming within the next 6 months. What can Final Fantasy 16 show you that will turn that around for you. That'll make you go, okay, yeah, that's right. Final Fantasy's always been mature, and they tackle these themes, but what is it that you're looking for? And I had a feeling I knew what it was. And Alexandria says, quote, I think the lighthearted moments would help, or at least some way to feel like there is hope for the game to have an accomplished feeling when I beat it. That is true that all Final Fantasy games tackle dark themes, but also has those moments where you can rest, end quote. So I'm excited for the next batch of information to come out, the next trailer to come out, and I kind of want to revisit this with you, Alexandria. I want to see if it turned it around for you. You know what I mean? I'm the warrior of hype. I gotta bring the hype for this. I gotta bring the hype because I feel like we're going to see raw, uncut gameplay footage at some point, and we're gonna meet these eccentric characters. We're gonna get some laughs in there, and you know, take the character description for Joshua as an example, where Joshua quails at the sight of carrots. Like, they didn't need to put that in there, but they did. And that shows us that they're thinking about it, right? There is some opportunities for, you know, the humor to come in there. Here are my closing thoughts for why Final Fantasy 16 is great to be rated M. Because you want to feel what Clive is feeling. You want to feel that need for revenge, that trauma, the tragedy. Clive's father get decapitated right in front of a 10-year-old boy with the blood splattered on his face. If you didn't see that, if it was off screen, you may not feel the connection, right? But we saw it. And you gotta think about the trauma. Think about what Clive is feeling in that moment. Think about what Joshua is feeling when his father is just boom right on it, and then boom, the head falls on the floor, man. But yeah, like it's just so good. It's just so good. Final Fantasy rated M for the first time in the mainline series. I'm excited. Are you excited? If you are, comment and tell me what has you the most hype when it comes to a mature rating. And if you're still on the fence, or maybe you're just like turned off by it completely, comment and let me know, because I you know, as the warrior of hype, I gotta try and make you hype for this game. And if not, that's fine too. We're campaigning for an early review code of Final Fantasy 16. It's already well underway, and also still looking to get those media badges, whether it's at E3 or Summer Game Fest. And we need your help. And by that mean you just share it, talk about it on socials, tag Square Enix in it, let them know that you love Final Fan TV and you want to see us cover some Final Fantasy at these showcases, at these events, because I will bring the hype. That's my job, the bringer of hype, the warrior of hype. Thank you so much for watching. Take care now.